respect the questions, so I'm going to try and really zone in on the questions and be brief as well, and take an example from Howard. The first question about the drug war. You know, the terminology about this affair really is a fight in of itself, and with good reason. This is a really complicated topic, as I think has been duly established today, but it's probably you knew well before today anyhow. Personally, the war on drugs to me is kind of one of the more offensive terms. I mostly agree with Annabelle. All my work has pointed to the lack of an existence of an effective war on drugs. That with the DARE campaign or something like that years ago that existed in the U.S. Obviously didn't do too well with record levels of consumption happening just a couple years ago. By the way, coinciding literally with record levels of violence. Okay, so just to show you the effectiveness of the drug war, which I don't think is even really much in question anymore. To me, the drug war itself is a pretty good term because there is a fight, so to speak, and but the question is, who's the fight between? You know, the government depicts it as a fight between them and both sides of the border and the cartels, but really, this is more of a fight between the cartels and often aided and vetted by the government. So it is a drug war, but not quite in the terms that are often used, and that's the trickiness of this topic. About what to do, it really depends. You know, just I think as Alberto said, it really depends on your perspective. Now, there's a lot of different perspectives to have in the drug war and how you feel about this topic, which takes a while to really learn about and truly become informed about. I think, as you've seen, probably should decide what you want to do about it. I mean, there's panelists here from a lot of different walks of life, a lot of different professions. Perhaps depending upon how what side of the fence, so to speak, you fall on will help you guide your way. THC, or drugs just even in general, being a difficult thing. I don't think there's a question about that. I began my comments with a brief allusion to policy, talking about Portugal. So there is an example of a whole country dealing with drugs as a public health problem. And that is an example probably we should look at much, much more closely and learn a lot more from. I was doing some work on healthcare for a while. I interviewed the leading healthcare expert in Japan. He was quoted all over the world. And he said, you know what, during your healthcare debate, nobody ever asked me anything about Japan. And I think in the U.S., where we have really low levels of consumption of foreign news media, we don't look at other countries really that much, even though we're right next to one right here, for examples. Portugal is a very interesting case study about how drugs can be dealt with as a public health problem, and probably something we should learn about. What's your question in the back again? I forgot.
My question was, if we were to decriminalize the use of marijuana or the sale of marijuana,
right.
How do we prevent the same criminal gangs from supplying it?
Okay, yeah, I got you. That's a good question, you know, and I have to say that decriminalization for even all drugs is not necessarily even the answer. In Portugal, that's literally what they did. Consumption levels even dropped or stayed the same for over a decade. But still, Portugal is not a border country, let's say, like the one that we have here with Mexico, right, where there's human trafficking. And the fact of the matter is, cartels probably would still exist and do other illegal things. But if you take a look at the profits that are made off of drugs, it's going to be very hard to equal that. It's going to be very hard to equal that and maintain the kind of lucrative nature of the business that's in existence now. This would be an enormous cut into the business, and it's dubious whether even things such as human trafficking could yield those kind of gains. And the power of the drug cartels could be decreased. We don't know. You know, we have other examples to look at, but as the congressman I think correctly described, we're pretty far away from that. You know, I'm not sure if that means that we should fight for that in Washington. That's definitely a question of strategy, and perhaps one that could be debated. Even if it's a losing fight, there's sometimes something to be won in bringing this debate at the federal level. You know, I remember I was interning in the office sometime. We knew we were going to get clobbered with an amendment that we passed to increase education spending at the expense of prison spending. I mean, I got clobbered on the floor, but at least we had precedent in showing that our congressman was taking a stand for an issue. We got a letter of congratulations from the Department of Education, all sorts of stuff. So I think that question actually, and you know, Beto's following me, so I'm sure he can address it, might be something of interest to the audience. So, you know, glad you brought it up.